Hi friends, a very warm welcome to Nick's Academy, and we are going to start with the first chapter, that is accounts from incomplete records. Now for the sake of this chapter, I'll be giving few examples which you have to keep in mind while studying. Now the first thing is that let's visualize that you are going to a shop which is a petty shop. You go to the petty shop, you buy small things, okay, maybe chocolates, maybe a newspaper, a magazine. So if you see, their stock as such is not very huge, it is very limited, and they are just going to maintain it in such a way that it is easily accessible. He will just pick out the newspaper, he'll just pick out the chocolates, and he's going to give you. He will take the cash from me and he'll put it in his box. There is going to be no entry which is going to be made for the money which is going to be received, and he is just going to, if someone is going to ask for money for purchases, he's just simply give the cash. So again, he's not going to maintain a record of how much cash he has paid. So very rarely will they actually note it down somewhere in a piece of paper. Maybe in the day end he will compile the whatever payments he has made and all those things. He will check whether the cash is matching or not. But very rarely will it happen, because in such setup it is very difficult for even him to maintain double entry bookkeeping system. So that is the main reason why we are learning this chapter, accounts from incomplete records. That means when the business is going to be maintained by a single person, a proprietorship, okay, what happens? He is going to be all alone. He's going to have limited stock, limited resources, and he's going to maintain these accounts in such a way that it is not going to be complete. Okay, the double entry system is not going to be maintained. He's going to maintain a single entry system, that is only inflow, cash plus he is going to write. From whom cash is received, he is not going to write. To whom the payment has been made, he is not going to write. To whom the purchase payments were made, he is not going to write, but he will only write the details of payment of cash maybe. Okay, so with this idea we'll get into this chapter. So please visualize that this chapter is not a proper company, it is a petty shop, and for a petty shop the records are not going to be maintained. So how we are going to close their accounts is what we are going to see in this chapter. So let's get into it. Yes, so So maintenance of accounting records as per double entry system is compulsory for certain organization. Why it is compulsory? Only then the records can be validated. Only then the records can be made available, and it will be audited, and then finally it will go up to the income tax authorities. But now what happens? But it is only for certain organization. If you read the first line once again. So in India, the companies must maintain accounting records under the double entry system of the Indian Companies Act 2013. Now, such organization they must maintain accounts only under double entry system. The other organization, they have an option. They may or may not strictly follow the double entry system, and the organization in which double entry system is not strictly followed, accounting records will be maintained as per the requirements and desires of the proprietors. Whatever they like, they are going to maintain. And as the accounting records are not prepared in entirety and as double entry system, these records are called incomplete records. So now you would have understood why we are calling them as incomplete records every now and then. So let's get more clarity with the incomplete records. What is the meaning of incomplete records? So when the accounting records are not strictly maintained according to the double entry system, these records are called incomplete accounting records. So they are not maintained according to what? Double entry system. No. So what happens? Cash account, personal account of customers, creditors are fully maintained. Okay, and other accounts are maintained based on necessity. If they need only, it is maintained. Otherwise, it is not maintained. So this is the meaning of incomplete records. Under this, some transactions are recorded fully. That is, for some transaction, both the debit and credit aspect is entered. For example, both the aspects are entered for cash received from the customers and cash paid to the customers. I repeat, cash received from the customer and cash paid to the creditors, it is going to be maintained. Some transactions are partially recorded, that is, only one aspect is recorded. So you received cash, but from whom you don't know. So it is not maintained. Next, for example, expenses paid may be entered only in cash account. So you paid some money. Okay, at that point of time, you had to make the payment, you made the payment, but to whom you made, you're not maintained. So that is partially recorded. Some transactions are not recorded itself. That is, both the debit credit aspect both are not going to be entered. For example, depreciation on fixed assets, they are not going to be recorded. So keeping all these things in mind, we call this as incomplete records. So it is incomplete, it is unscientific way of bookkeeping, and it is called single entry system of bookkeeping. Okay, so very quickly we'll go through the features and then we will go ahead with the chapter. So what are the features? Number one, nature. As I told you, it is what? As I told you, it is what? It is unscientific and unsystematic way of recording transactions. So accounting principles and accounting standards are not at all going to be followed. So it is unscientific and unsystematic. Next thing is that what type of accounts are maintained? Only cash and personal accounts are going to be fully maintained. Real and nominal are not maintained. That is, the expenditure part is not maintained. Okay, so that is not going to be maintained. Some transactions are completely omitted, like we discussed, depreciation is going to be completely omitted. Some transactions partially they are going to be maintained. So the type of accounts. Then lack of uniformity. There is no uniformity in recording the transaction among the different organizations. The way you are going to maintain incomplete records, not the other person or your friend is going to maintain. So there is going to be a difference in all the organization. So there is going to be no uniformity. Different organizations will record the transactions according to their needs and their conveniences. So this is the third feature of incomplete records. Then the fourth feature is financial statements may not represent a true and fair view. Why? When the account itself is not complete, that is, they are incomplete records and inaccurate. Obviously they are inaccurate. So profit and loss, what you arrive from these records, can it be relied? Of course not. You cannot rely on this profit and loss, and it may not represent true profitability. When you're not going to maintain the complete records, how can you get the true profit? So it's very rare. Also, assets and liabilities also are not going to be true and fair. Okay, so that is the reason why we are not going to rely on this financial statements, because they are not going to give what? True and fair view. Next, suitability. It is only so can you just tell me, based on our discussion, what it is suitable for? It is only for the business concerns which have no legal obligations. That is, in the beginning we said no, Companies Act 2013 requires certain companies to maintain double entry system, but here when it is not required, then they can go ahead and maintain such accounts, incomplete records. But when, so only the business concern which have no obligation to maintain the books of accounts and the double entry system will be maintaining what? Incomplete records. Hence it may be maintained by small size sole traders and partnership firms. Then there is going to be a lot of mixing up of personal and business transaction. So generally personal transactions of the owner, for example, if he is going to buy something for his home, what he will do, he is not going to split the transaction as personal transaction and official or business transaction. He is going to mix up both. He is going to use the cash for both. He is going to pay the son's fees from there. He is going to take some money received from someone which he has given as loan into the cash. So it is going to be totally mixed up. So there is going to be mixing up of personal and business transaction. So purchase of goods for his own use will be mixed along with the business purchases. So these are the 6 features of incomplete records. Now, based on this, we can also talk about the limitations. Again, the limitations is that there is going to be lack of proper maintenance of records. Again, it is unscientific, it is unsystematic way of maintaining records. Real and nominal are not maintained properly. Then there is going to be difficulty in preparing the trial balance. As the accounts are not maintained for all the items, the accounting records are going to be what? Incomplete. When all the items are not there, only partially or incomplete records are going to be there, then how can you prepare the trial balance? Hence, it is difficult to prepare the trial balance to check the arithmetic accuracy of the accounts. Okay. Now, then what we are going to see, the difficulty in ascertaining the true profitability. In fact, third point and fourth point you can read together. See, there is going to be true profitability of the business if all the transactions are maintained properly and all the transactions are available. But in incomplete records, they are not going to be maintained accurately. They are not going to be available. So how are you going to ascertain the true profitability? So profit is found based on the available information and estimate. Hence, it is difficult to ascertain the true profit, as a trading profit and loss cannot be prepared with accuracy. Same way, there is going to be difficulty in ascertaining the financial position. So from where do you ascertain the financial position? So for that you have to prepare the state of affairs or the financial positions on a particular date. So in what happens, only estimated values of assets and liabilities are available from the incomplete records. Hence it's difficult to ascertain the true fair view of state of affairs or financial position on a particular day. Then the errors and frauds cannot be detected easily. That is, as only partial records are available, how are you going to determine whether the internal checks and controls are possible? I'm sorry. Errors and fraud cannot be detected easily. As only partial records are available, it may not be possible to have internal checks in maintaining the accounts to detect the errors and frauds. So what happens when you yourself are not going to maintain the books of accounts clearly? How are you going to check the internal? How are you going to see if the internal checks, and how are you going to get the errors? How are you going to find the frauds? For example, if every day we are going to close the cash, okay, we come to know this is the closing balance, so that becomes the opening balance for next month, next day, and then finally you have all your transactions, and you know for this it is the receipt, this for this it is the payment, and then you get the closing cash balance. But now nothing is available, then how are you going to detect any errors or frauds? So this is a very big limitation in incomplete records. Then of course it is not going to be acceptable to the government and other authorities, as the accounts are maintained are incomplete. They may not comply with the legal requirement. Hence the government, tax authorities and other legal authorities do not accept accounts prepared from incomplete records.